Hello, my little turtles and my turtle doves. Welcome back to the show. Hello, I'm Ashley. This is Divine Dingo. And interesting fact, I recently saw some statistics about my podcast, and there's some episodes where 50% of my listeners stop listening within the first 3 minutes. And I had a realization. I was like, that is when I am doing my intros. Wow. I don't feel insecure at all. Gonna keep chugging along and just being me 100%. Welcome back to the show. I have missed you guys. I have been on the road, trying to get my needs met, trying to drink water, eat healthy food, call my dad a lot, I guess. Just keep up with it. Call the grandma, you know what I mean? Keep up with Mother's Day, the Father's Days and shit that people seem to take so seriously. And who knows? I'm not a mother or a father. Maybe I would give a shit if I was, but I think it's kind of dumb. Sorry, Mom and Dad and other dad. What was I saying? Yes, been on the road, but now I'm in one place where I will be for the duration of the summer. And so I'm going to get this podcast back where I want it to be. So long story short, I missed you guys, but you can start expecting 2 episodes a month like it was before. Before I went into the portal of the Kia soul that every time I get into, she takes me somewhere new. So her name is Fiona, and you can send her fan mail to 1111 Kia Soul Drive. God, that's a stupid joke. I'm not editing it out. Today on the podcast, I have Tiara Pigg on, and we recorded this episode, I think about a month ago. I was in San Diego for 2 weeks, and I went up to LA to get some work done. That's probably one of the most adult things I ever did. I rented an apartment for a few nights and then just had people on my podcast and got work done and shit. And I was like, wow, this is I should have a briefcase, this is getting serious. So Tara and I spend a lot of the episode talking about timeline shifting. She gives me her experience with her animal communication, working with animal spirits, just all in all, just a great episode with a great person. So you're really in for it. I have linked all of Tiara's information in the show notes, her Instagram. She has a Patreon and a YouTube. She often does Ask an Oracle stories on Instagram that I always take the opportunity to ask a question for. It's always, you can give her tips for it, but she never is give me a tip for this or I'll punch you, because that's not Tara's energy. So you don't have to tip her, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe just throw her a little something, on her Venmo. You know what I'm saying? Let's give her some love for giving us some hard-hitting information, because this person is gifted. I don't like to use the word or the term oracle loosely, but she is it. So anyways, without further ado, I'm going to stop rambling. If you don't know Tiara, now you do. Not from my shitty intro of her, but if you just go on and listen to this podcast. So, maybe you don't yet, but you will. Whatever. Am I a great podcast host? It's questionable. I am, though, a great animal communicator and really great at transitioning into topics, if you can't tell. And I have opened up my schedule for readings. So if you are feeling like you want to deepen your connection with how you communicate with your animal, I've kind of changed the format of my readings in that we start out by you telling me how you communicate with your animal, what that looks like for you, and then we build on that. And then I obviously will channel whatever questions you have for your animal. I'll keep the line open, and your animal or animals will be with us the whole time we're on the phone, but also it's an opportunity for you to deepen your connection with simply communicating with your animal and where you can go with that. So I'm really excited about the new format. And yeah, that's it. All right. I've rambled enough. About 5 minutes. About 50% of you guys have probably dropped off already, but sucks for you. Sucks to suck, losers. Okay, great intro, Ashley. Let's all welcome Tiara Pigg.
So growing up, I was the kid that brought home animals. Like I would go to like the community center and take a cup and get tadpoles and bring them home, and I would have frogs, and my mom's like, "What are you doing? Like what is happening?" I'm like, "I couldn't just leave them. Like I wanted them." So I had a freaking frog. His name was Scooter. He stunk so bad. It was so bad. Um, and then I had a bird that I brought home. And then the last pet that my mom let me bring home was a dog, and her name was Minnie. And how we found Minnie was pretty crazy. I'm trying to figure out if I want to go into that story. Okay, I will. So basically, my dad passed away. Very tragic, very sudden. It was very, very hard for me. And I was starting a new school, and we had just moved. Me and my mom had just moved. So as an 8-year-old, everything I was just in complete survival mode. Like I had absolutely no idea what was going on, what I was supposed to feel. I was disassociated to the best of my ability. And I was going to start a new Catholic school. And on our way to this school, I already didn't like the fact that it was a Catholic school and I had to wear uniforms, and it was just tough for me. On the way to the school, there was a puppy in the middle of the road, and we were running late, and my mom almost hit this dog, and I made her stop the car. We got the dog, and I brought her in, and I was like, we have to keep this dog. And that was just my energy as a kid. I was always around, like I would always find things that needed me, right? Like I had to take care of this. I had to. And me and that dog, oh my God, we had such the connection. Loved her so much. She, I think I taught her how to be a little bougie. She would only drink water with ice cubes in it. You know,
Oh.
she didn't drink regular water. It had to be like, wash out my bowl, put some water in there, and then some ice cubes, and then I'll drink it. Thank you. So it was pretty stinking cool. Through like all of my life, I have been very connected to animals, and I have just talked to them and cared for them just like you would kids. Like that's just how I see them. I don't know if it's I'm an Aquarius rising, and I know that my favorite thing to do is like feed things and like give something to someone, and I wonder if that's like supposed to be the way that Aquariuses show their love, by giving sustenance, whether it's knowledge or food or water or whatever. They're like, here, this is what I have to offer you. So that's on like the 3D side of it before I really grew into spirituality. And then once I started waking up, my first spiritual, I guess, spirit animal. Yeah, my first spirit animal was the bear. And I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Like it makes sense that I would have a bear guarding me and teaching me the ways, right? And then going forward was the bunny. Like the bunny was the next one. And after the bunny and the bear, they feel like my main two. I just had open communication to spirit animals. Like they just would come and go, and they would, drop off certain messages. It felt like once I had my established two, then I had more of like communication with all of them.
Can you talk a little bit about like what that bear energy like felt like for you, or like how it presented itself to you, and like what kind of like protection the bear spirit offered?
I never noticed it. I think the way that it showed up for me personally was just a sense of confidence. Like I didn't really question my safety ever. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel scared or alone or like where certain people would be afraid to walk at night. I wasn't. Like I just like it didn't even cross my mind. And I think because I had the bear's protection. Like now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm older and I think about stuff, I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even think that that could have bothered me at all. But when I talk to people who can see what's going on, because I
Mm-hmm.
can see other people's stuff, but I don't really notice mine. They
Mm-hmm.
say that the bear just has like it's like a purple bear, apparently,
Cool.
and it just has a very protective stance, almost like a bodyguard feel. Like it's not really pushing anything away, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
always ready, you know? And my son has seen it and he was terrified. And I was like, sweetheart, he's on our team. It's all right. It is okay. The bear's here for us. I know it can be scary. So I haven't really noticed it. It does come out in times of like needing to protect either myself or my son at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it will give me the
Mm-hmm.
strength in those areas because I'm not very confrontational at all, like
Mm-hmm.
at all. So when it comes to protecting me, little ones, animals, my son, my family, stuff like that, the bear energy is definitely there. It's definitely mama bear energy.
Yeah, I love that. I love when you said bear, I lit up because if I have any connection to any animal, it's bear. Like I just literally I wanted to show you. I just got this bear tattoo.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That
like
is
the
so cool.
grizzly and then like a fern because they eat wood ferns, but yeah, it's like kind of like a galactic looking bear.
Yes, that is amazing.
Yeah, because I also have when I first started tapping into I guess I first started tapping into like what were my past lives as animals, but then I spent a lot of time hiking around the Pacific Northwest, and like being from the East Coast, I was trying to like get my not trying to be punny here, but get my bearings when I was like
Mhm.
in a forest where I didn't know like what kind of animal life was there. I didn't know like if there were, people that were going to pop out at a bush at me. Like my mom like she always wanted me to be safe, so she instilled a lot of fear into me in situations where like my energy would not be fearful. So it's a lot of like programming that I'm like constantly having to notice and like hold space for and then like integrate. So part of that was like mountain lions and bears in the Pacific Northwest. And so I remember I had it was one of the times I was like walking in the woods and I was coming down from the trail and the sun was setting. And they say that the most dangerous times to see a mountain lion is in like sunrise and sunset. And so like I was getting a little nervous. I was just like, and they say that because like if they're out at sunrise or sunset, they haven't like found food for the day. So like they're extra hungry and. But I just remember like at that time like walking and then literally like seeing like in my mind's eye like a mountain lion like running up from behind me and then like going to like pounce on me, but then coming and like almost like pouncing on me from behind, but then like coming inside of me. And then that was when I realized I was like, oh, like I am the mountain lion. And then
Mhm.
like once I had that realization, then I had like a mountain lion energy literally walking right next to me to my right, just kind of like, doing that, how their shoulders kind of go up like this when they walk. Yeah, like just walking
Mhm.
next to me. And then it was around the same time where I don't know if it was actually in the woods that night, because I think that specific time was with the mountain lion, but I do remember like always having the bear next to me as well. But it was like around the time that I woke up and in 2019, and feeling like I needed to protect my energy, but not knowing quite like how to do it yet, like with shielding or like just consciously doing it. And so calling in for support. And I always just felt like a bear standing right in front of me if I felt like vulnerable, if I felt like, somebody's trying to like throw energy at me, or like my energy is really big, or just anything, like the bear would just be in front of me. And like, I've even imagined it getting like really aggressive sometimes and like basically energetically telling people to fuck off, and
Mm-hmm.
so then after that night with the mountain lion, I had like bear on my left, mountain lion on my right. And just like, I always just felt like with those two energies, then like I wasn't going to spook any bear or mountain lion on the trails. And also it was like they could communicate with the other like animal spirits on the trail, where like, if I were to be approached by a lion on a trail, my first thought wouldn't be, oh, I can communicate with animals, no big deal. I'd be like, bitch, I'm about to get eaten, I think. I'd be terrified. So and anyway, so I feel like having those two energies, it's like they almost can like be that middleman between me and like, a bear or mountain lion, so
Mm-hmm.
I love that you said bear. um yeah, and I also like, and that's why I also asked you like how it presents to you, because I also don't necessarily like feel the guidance all the time. It is just like a quiet protection. And like, if I think about the bear and if I feel like I need protection, they'll literally just be standing right in front of me, like standing on, how big they are. And it's like
Yes.
specifically grizzly bears for me. Like, so yeah. Yeah.
So I love that your bear is in front of you. My bear's usually behind me, and it feels like this intense amount of spatial pressure. Like that's if
Mhm.
I could explain it in any way, it's like it gives a certain amount of, think about that. Like, hold on. She seems little, but this is the pressure that comes with her, okay? And then
Uh-huh.
I have like Bunny in the front. So I bet people are just like, what is this energy that I'm feeling? It's super cute, but it feels like you could eat my face. What is this? And I'm like, yeah, super cute, but I
Yeah, that's
could in
it.
fact eat your face off. Yeah, if I had to. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love Bunny too. Like, how does Bunny feel for you?
Bunny feels very light. Like it just feels very
Mm.
lighthearted and playful. But when it comes to conflict with the bunny energy, for me, like when the conflict is coming towards me, I'm like, oh, that's upsetting. Like, it's like, oh, I'm sorry you would feel that way. Oh, man, what's going on? It's kind of more of a, let's neutralize this, let's de-escalate it. But when it comes to family, friends, or anything like that, it's like a quick, like, no, 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 no. We're not going to go over there. Okay. It's like a quick shift of, no, we don't go to family. We don't go to friends. We don't do that. But if it's about me, yeah. Yeah, we can, it feels a lot more soothing almost.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
outside of conflict, it feels like it's really the hare. I call it the bunny, but it's really the hare, and it's freaking huge. And it helps me with the timelines, like getting either adjusted to the timelines, so that that nesting energy that you may feel when you're preparing for a new timeline, or the destruction energy that you're trying to get rid of an old timeline. Bunny helps with that. It feels like it's really
Wow.
good with getting a space together or
Uh-huh.
ridding of a space.
And also, it's like, I mean, I don't want to be that person, but they might also actually help you hop timelines because the bunny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't want to be that person either. So thank you for saying it with me. But they do, in fact, help me hop timelines. They do. They help me like, dude, we got to get rid of some stuff. Like, that's the feeling. Like, we got to start eating lighter. We got to start packing lighter. We're about to jump. Like you gotta come
Yeah.
on, let's get rid of all this stuff.
Uh, I love that too, because right when you started talking about your bunny energy, in my mind, I was like, I literally immediately started thinking about timelines, but I knew that like I wanted to eventually like shift the conversation there. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just getting excited and I'm like looking for that doorway. Because as a podcast host, I'm always like, okay, what's the route to bring it, you know? And I was like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how I'm gonna fucking do that and this. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, my bunny helps me with timelines. And I'm like,
There we go. Magnifique. Love it.
amazing. Yeah, so with your experience with like and I struggle with the words. I don't love the idea of like jumping timelines because I think like I don't love the word jumping because it just seems like it is so cut and dry. Whereas, like,
Mm-hmm.
really, there is just so much that like liminal space between one timeline to another. There's like static energy. There's something going on there, and then it doesn't feel like a clean like jump. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
there's steps to another timeline. And so I like to say like shifting timelines because it really does like my energy, I pivot more than
Mm-hmm.
I like completely jump. Like I can like if I have one timeline on the left, one on the right, like I'll like slowly pivot and then that pivot to the one on the right is a journey of itself. Is like I guess like a timeline in between a timeline, but I don't know how you experience that and if you like and I guess just as I'm talking to you, I'm kind of putting it together, but it does feel like there's this whole other energy between timelines and like I don't know if there's like a word for that or maybe like if you've experienced that and what's that like for you?
I have definitely experienced it. I've experienced it in two different ways. So, and I think everyone has. Um, I've experienced the in between space of timelines, either in like a major shedding and death and cocooning energy, to where you're just
Mhm.
like doing shadow work and you're getting to the bottom of all the stuff that you need to get off of you before you can get to this other timeline. And you're like, oh, it just feels like this is never really gonna like happen. What am I doing? But before you know it, it's been what, a month or so, and you're like, I think I just healed something. And I
Mhm.
think I'm ready to take the next steps to get to where I was planning to go 2 months ago. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like that in between, or the in between where you're like, actually, you get to take a little bit of a break and you just get to hang out
Mhm.
with your friends and go out to eat and party and enjoy your human for a little bit. And you pamper your body and you try foods and you just like that type of in between of a timeline.
Mhm.
And then you're like, yeah, I think I'm ready to get back to work now. I'm ready to do that thing that's going to take like a year's worth of my attention now. So
Mhm.
I've done both of those and I enjoy them. Nope, I was going to lie to you today. I do not enjoy them equally. I do not enjoy them equally. I do appreciate them though, because they both serve their purpose. I much,
Mhm.
much, much, much enjoy the one with the friends, the food, and the laughter a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I see the timelines like, I know a lot of people say jumping timelines, but I really see it as like interstates. And if you're going on a road
Mhm.
trip, like where are you
Mhm.
going? And you're going to frequently get to these splits to where you have to like continuously choose the route in which you want to go. And
Mm.
sometimes we get distracted and we go a different way. And then you got to find your way all the way back to this original route and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
But it's just routes and merging and off ramps and stuff like that. And there are some
Mhm.
shortcuts and some things where you can take the long way. And that's how I see it with timelines. It's like you're going to get there as long as you're driving, but there are more efficient ways of getting there and there are more lackadaisical ways of getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that imagery of like merging on and off of roads and like when you said interstates, I almost imagine like when you get really close to a city and there's just like bridges, like five bridges stacked on top of each other and you have to like you better get in the fucking right lane or you're going to be like 20 miles off track. Like that's kind of like what I was seeing and it's like I just drove into LA so I literally have that imagery like fresh in my mind. I'm just like, "Oh, bitch, I got to get
Mhm.
off." 5 lanes over? Why are there 7 lanes on a highway? That's terrifying for me. But yeah, because I don't see it. I guess like up until really recently, I wasn't exactly sure what like a major timeline shift would look like for me because I feel like I make like miniature timeline shifts every minute of every day. Like every it's like and I think when the idea of timelines first got presented to me, it seemed like this only like a like higher dimensional, but higher dimensional like out of my reach, higher dimensional, not like higher dimensional like I know it's all around me and it's in my grasp. It just felt like something that was yeah like unattainable. But then like the more that I settled into just like my patterns and how I process and the choices that I make, how I make choices, I was like, oh, it's like literally constant. Like you're constantly shifting timelines just based on like your mood, your food choices,
Mhm.
literally what road you turn down or don't turn down. Like you're just constantly doing it. Um, and so recently I had to make like a really, I just say I had to make, I chose to make like a really big shift. And it was kind of like I got to a boiling point with the timeline that I was on where I was like, I had my own studio apartment. I was working a 9 to 5. Like it was the epitome of like stability.
Mhm.
All of my needs were met. I like all of in a steady income. Like it just on paper, it was like, oh, this is probably a good situation to be in. But for me, I literally felt like the stability was making me like fall apart, like die. Like I felt like I was dying, but not in like a beautiful death rebirth kind of way. Just like my soul was like fucking stagnant and dying. So I was like, okay, well, I have to do something big. But I guess I just didn't know like how to go about it. So I was just taking advice from people like in the community, okay, like every time the waiter comes to your table, tell them what you want. I was kind of taking that energy. So I was spending a lot of time on my phone researching and I was like constantly on Craigslist looking at apartments to a town I wanted to live in. I was like halfway planning a road trip, just like really like lackadaisically putting my focus on completely shifting a timeline, but trying to be specific about it.
Right.
And I just felt like I was just trying to like take all of this advice from so many outside sources and none of it was like working for me. And then I was just getting more and more frustrated, like, and then my programming came up of like, oh, I'm probably doing it wrong. This is bad. I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And so the boiling point got to another boiling point of me feeling like I was so stuck in this like 3D routine, never going to get out. And then I had a phone call with Mela, and Mela was like, "You're just looping because you're not making a decision. You're just literally looping." And then so I felt like I was taking tiny action towards my goal of a new timeline. But I basically, long story short, what I want to talk about is how like shifting timelines looks really different for different people based on their energy and then also has looked really different for me based on my energy at a certain point in my life. So
Mhm.
this specific one, I had to take not just action but like big action, like action that scared the fuck out of me and action with like no plan and no not even like one guarantee that it would work out. So I just like had to put in my 30-day notice at my apartment and my job with nothing and then give myself 30 days to figure it out. And now, like a month, like 2 months later, like my dreams are coming true. And like I'm not worried about my bills. And like I'm meeting amazing people and I'm like transforming and growing. And I'm in that like hang out with your friends, eat good food, do a whole bunch of self care, go naked suntan at the beach with a bunch of hippies. Like I'm in that area. But it's like, and I can see that there's like another timeline I'm going to, but I'm just like enjoying, yeah, that like liminal space. But anyways, it's
Mhm.
just that big fucking action that I think that some people they don't have to take like they don't have to just be like just go jump into the abyss. But with my energy, at least at that time, I literally had to jump off a cliff and the
Yeah.
universe was like that's how your energy works. Like you don't have a whole solid plan and then jump into safety. Like you literally have to just take risks and then we'll catch you, but you have to be willing to like jump. And I was like, I need a plan.
Right. First of all, I want to say that I love that that's where you are right now. Like, I love that for
Thank you.
you, and I hope you get to enjoy every second of it. Every
Mhm.
second.
Yeah, it's good. It's just to like I find that when I'm like traveling now. I'm really just trying to like soak up the oh, I can't think of the word, like the I guess the fluidness of it, just like the non-permeance. Impermeance? I don't know. Of it all. You know what I mean? I find myself just like when I was talking to you just like before we started recording, I was starting to get really fucking frustrated because all I wanted to do was eat an apple and peanut butter and I didn't have any peanut butter and I was just like, and I'm hot and I'm walking around and I was like, all these little things were coming up and I was like, I'm irritated. And then I was like walking down the streets of LA and I'm seeing like fucking succulents just growing, like fucking thriving, just palm trees. And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, look where you are. Like you are in the middle of your dreams unfolding. And
Yeah.
none of this is going to last. Like, so just like have your, sweat a little bit on the streets of LA, get your peanut butter, fucking relax. And like, like there's so much unfolding for you. So yeah, just having to like humble myself, bring myself right back down.
Yeah. I kind of see timeline jumping as like the thing that happens when I have been in beta too long because I really enjoy leisure. I enjoy like not set it and forget it is my style. Like I enjoy being able to set something up to where it works itself and I get to just fucking do nothing. That is amazing for me. So sometimes when I check in from being in beta and I like really take inventory of my life, I'm like, oh shit. We've steered off the path a little bit. I actually don't like where I am. I don't like what I'm doing. And we got to like do a hard shift. So when I feel like I have just gone too far from what the plan was, that's when I do a whole timeline jumping thing where I'm like, all right, a lot is about to change quick. What needs to go? And that's when the bunny energy comes in. What do we need to let go of? Like, how can we lighten ourselves a little bit? Do we have too many possessions? Because having too much stuff for me makes it really hard for me to do anything. Like, I feel responsible for everything that I have. So it's just best for me to not have that many things. Like, I feel like a piece of my energy goes into every object that I have. So if I can cut down on some of the stuff that I feel responsible for, then I feel like I'm able to do more for myself. And I'm also a projector, so that might be part of it too, where I just don't have much energy to spare. Like I just don't. So I'll do that. I'll take inventory of my diet and what I'm putting into my body. And I'm like, okay, it's probably time to do a little cleanse. Probably got a little too comfortable with the yummy food. That's okay. Like, it's fine. Let's get our bodies a little lighter so we're like more able to process this stuff. And then this is the hardest part for me when it comes to the shift. I usually have to do something that's going to make people mad. Like I have to do something that is going to upset someone or let someone down or something along those lines. It happens every single time. And it's not like I have a problem with people being upset with me, but I have a problem with people like any sort of judgment, jealousy, or envy. Those are my kryptonite in a way of like, if I'm chilling, hanging out with friends, and then I kind of snap into it, I'm like, oh shit, I was supposed to be doing this project, and I get my project up and going quickly, and it happens fast, and everything's going, and everybody's like, you were just like struggling, quote unquote, a couple months ago, and now you're doing great. And I can just feel that like jealousy bit, and people end up getting mad at me, and then that's where the shift usually happens, where it's like, okay, now you are by yourself, you can cocoon, you can remove all of these values and stuff that you have picked up while hanging out with people, and you can go along back to your path or your journey.
Yeah. It almost sounds like what you're saying, or what I'm hearing you say, is that like it's necessary that you shed like people's perceptions of what you're doing. Because if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
if you like too many perceptions at what you're doing is like also weighing you down, like your stuff or your diet or like your routine or something. So
Yes.
it's people's perceptions of you. And do
Mm-hmm.
like when those people kind of like go away for a little bit, is it like relationships that you end up getting back, or is it like you kind of just all like take a break from one another, or what does that look like when you're with your relating to people?
In the past, like sometimes people pop back up and it's just not the
Mm-hmm.
same because I don't hold the things that made us click
Mm-hmm.
anymore. But there's
Mm-hmm.
not really ever an issue. Like we can do
Mm-hmm.
the whole catch up Southern pleasantries, how are you, how are the kids type of deal,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we don't necessarily need to be at Sunday dinner anymore. You know, like we just don't, because we don't have the same things that made us stick. Um, so yeah, it's pretty interesting to see because I'm so non-judgmental that I can hang out with anyone. I can hang out with anyone and they can have their own thing going on. And if I get to a place where I have fallen asleep enough, I can start to get bored. And this is what I've noticed. I get bored, and higher dimensionally, I'm playing this game of let's see what it looks like to try on their values. Because we're not doing anything else.
Mm.
Let's see what that looks like. And then I'll be like, okay, well, let's see what this looks like. Let's see what this looks like. And I'm like playing these. I don't know if you've ever played a video game where you get to a corner and you figured out that you can pick up a pot and drop it and it'll shatter, but it'll pop back up. Like something weird, some glitch in the game where you're like, huh, I could just stand in this corner and do that for a while. Like, and it's
Yeah.
completely just not part of what you're supposed to do. But you're like, that was a cool little hack. Let me see if I can find another one of those.
Yeah.
So it's just like, wait a minute, I was supposed to be doing something. And that's typically what happens. And I have to I have to remember, oh yeah, I hang around people that can do whatever, but I don't necessarily have to share their values. Like I get
Hmm.
it and I understand it, but I have to remember to stand firm in what I value, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. And sorry, last piece.
No, don't be
I've
sorry.
also with this last timeline shift, I have like vowed to myself as a way to support myself better that I'm just not going to be around people who can't validate me or people that would judge or criticize me because that seems to hit me
Hmm.
the hardest.
Hmm.
So if I notice that, that is a red flag in relationships, friendships, partnerships, all of it. If
Hmm.
someone criticizes you or needs, not to project, if someone criticizes me or needs me to not talk about something or change something in order to be around, then it's just not my crowd. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's really fine.
That's really beautiful. I like that you said like somebody to validate you, because I think that that might be something that I um was like conditioned away from honestly like desiring from other people. And I think that like I've built up this exterior that feels really true and feels like a really big part of myself that's like really tough, you know, like, oh, I don't need any validation. Like I know who I am, you know what I mean? But that's just like if I really sit with it, you know, there are times, and like right before I made this huge shift, I did like I thought I knew what shadow work was until like one day it actually happened upon me. Like it literally, my guides were just like, they handed it to me and I didn't quite accept it, but they kind of just like shoved it in my mouth and they were like, haha, you know, you're gonna do shadow work for 25 hours. I don't know, I didn't say
Yeah,
24, whatever. 25 hours. That's exactly how long it was.
I
um
get that. I get it.
yeah, yeah. And it was like 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was still at work and I was like, can you guys like give me a little bit more foresight before you just like literally make me rethink my entire life, the way that I relate to people, the narratives I create in my head, and like all of this shit. You know, it was like So like I do doubt myself, or like I think before I did the shadow work, like I doubted myself a lot, and then like I was really resistant to looking for like outside support because I thought that that was bad and that it made me bad, that I wasn't like I couldn't just rely on myself and my own thoughts and beliefs and things like that to like support me, because I see like other people doing that, and rather than just like at that time looking at them and being like, oh, their energy is this way, it presents this way, and my energy presents this way, I was just like, oh, I want to be like that. Like, I don't want to be like me. And I'm curious too, like in human design, do you have an open G center? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, because the way that you said that you like want to try on like other people's kind of like morals and values and stuff, that sounds like an open, kind of like an open G center. If Michelle Johnson is listening to this, she's either rolling over because I'm wrong or really excited because I'm right. But I have an open G center, and basically, like a short way to describe what that means is I am who I hang out with. And so like like at first that made me it kind of bringing back to what I said earlier. It's like I can't just I struggle. I don't want to say I can't, but I struggle with in every single situation knowing who I am, knowing what I want to say, knowing how I want to respond, because it changes. It's so fluid. I would say my morals stay the same for the most part, but like I mean, I spent 2 weeks at like a hippie commune where like I didn't even know that I could get to those places within myself where I was just like so comfortable, because I have like a lot of like body confidence issues, but I was just like so comfortable being nude around a bunch of people that I might consider have better bodies than me, or like men that like I would normally be like, oh my God, but my body's not perfect, so don't look at it. Like it didn't fucking matter, because like the energy of the place was like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And I was like flowing, and we were having all these beautiful conversations every night. And I felt like so awake the entire time I was there. And then I shift into like a completely different group of people where it's like high stress, a lot of long hours, a lot of expectations, a lot of anxiety. And then like that person that I was at that farm is like not even, it's nowhere in my body anymore. Like it's like taking a leave. And so it's situations like that. And then it also presents like how my friend groups are so varied, how I like can be one way in one situation, completely different in a different situation. And like I think too, talking about timelines, that literally puts me on timelines where I'm not consciously choosing it. It's just like my energy, if I'm not aware of it, is like pulled somewhere else. And I have to like I'm really focusing on being conscious about, okay, where is my energy going? Where is my attention? What are my thoughts when I'm going to bed at night? Because this is what I am bringing in. And is it mine, or is it like am I believing that it's mine because of how like my energy like absorbs things sometimes. So it's just, I don't know if you've like ever felt like that, or if that's kind of like your experience with taking on other people's like morals and picking up the pan and shattering it kind of.
Absolutely. I have done that so much. And I honestly equated it to being such an empath. But I think I like to cross reference things to where it doesn't matter which way you flip it. This is the energy of it, however you want
Mhm.
to explain it. I have definitely done that. So much so to where hanging around like potheads, I would feel high all the time. And I don't smoke weed.
Yeah.
So it would be that type of stuff where I'm like, how do I feel high right now? And I would
Mhm.
question it like it's not a contact high because I just got here. Like I just walked in and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
we're high. Okay. Like that's what we're doing right now. All right. And I definitely have to watch out, not watch out, but I have to be conscious of who I hang around. And if it's so far from where I want to go, then I won't be able to try it on. I'll just feel like a failure for being myself. Like if it's
Mm.
so out of resonance,
Mhm.
I'll just like not be able to do anything because whenever I try to be me, I feel like I'm failing. And when I try
Mhm.
to be them, I feel like I'm failing. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. So I think that it's really important for people to know that you can definitely change those situations of just environments. Because even when I used to live in like poverty stricken places, I literally my rent was at one point $200.
Mm-hmm.
And normal people will be like, oh, that's amazing. You just work a job, save some money, and then you move out. But the energy of it being so poor there, and I'm not saying that in like a harmful way, that's what it was. I could not move. It was like I was so dense. I could not move. I could barely feed myself. I had to just leave. And that happens every time where like I'm in a hotel right now, but because of the area that I'm in, I've been able to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would be like, some people would see a hotel being a worse option than being in an actual apartment, even though the area wasn't bad. But that's just, I have to be around certain energies. If I could, the closer I can be to the richest part of town and be able to have some of that energy and kind of tune myself in a way to just be able to make some stuff work, that's what works for me. Some people can, I don't even want to say some people can, but I feel like some people feel like they need to put themselves in the midst of adversity and find their way out. And you don't. Like, you can absolutely choose the ease of just being around the things that can like migrate to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, there is like we romanticize the struggle a lot. And like I know in
Mm-hmm.
American culture especially. And like I'm from Virginia, so I understand that like Southern charm, how the kids, but like we don't really give a shit about each other, you know what I mean? Like that like small talky stuff, but also that like that romanticizing the struggle. And my whole family does this. And like I can feel I mean, I've been living away from home for like 5 years, living like a life that maybe, I mean, not like a bad life by any means, or like quote bad life, but like
Mm-hmm.
just a different life, like a not stable life, and one that like I actively choose to have ease in now that I have like I've chosen to struggle just to say that I could do it, and I did that because like I felt like it was like romanticized. Like, no, like my life is hard, but I can still find joy in it or something. And like, but like I was like I said, I feel like I'm kind of rambling a bit, but I putting myself in those situations consciously just to say, told you so to like my parents and my family. But like now with this new shift, for me to be able to take like 5 months off, I'm 1 month into like a 5 month leisurely road trip where like my bills are taken care of, like there's no struggle, like, and I kind of refuse to have struggle on this trip, and I have kind of encountered some situations where like I went against my truth and I did some of my like people pleasing habits, and like I found myself in struggle, and I was like really upset at myself for not being true to the energy that I wanted to maintain on this trip, but choosing that ease, like I have people that do romanticize struggling, kind of like I feel like their energy is like side eyeing me. You know what I mean? They're just like rolling their eyes. It's like, don't you know that life has to be hard, Ashley? Like, don't you know that you're living in a fantasy land? And it's like, it just that doesn't feel true. That doesn't resonate. But anyway, so it's like, yeah, like you can, and I think that I'm finding myself being like, well, there is so much suffering in the world, and it's like, um I don't know the right word for it, but like while there is suffering, there is also ease, and it's like if you have the privilege to choose which one that you want, like why do we spend so much time romanticizing the struggle? It's like if we're all struggling, who's going to come in and like raise the vibration, if you will? I mean, I know that sounds really love and lighty, but like raise the energy, do the grid work, like to help people get out of the suffering. Because if you're all suffering and you look around everywhere and all you see is suffering, then that's just your reality and you don't know that there's ease. So like some of us have to live in ease.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think that everyone, first, let me back up. We're going to put a pin in that statement. Thank you, ADHD. I want to say that the first statement you were saying about feeling the side eye and all that good stuff, that's the jealousy and envy energy that I was talking about that makes it so
Mhm.
hard, because I know that anything that I can do is available to everyone. And maybe that's more of
Mm.
that Aquarius energy where it's like, if I can do it,
Mhm.
I know you can. We're just literally in different places right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's it. And that's why I can hang around like people that are so different, because I know that that could be me. Whether
Mhm.
it's good or bad, I see them as very neutral, because I know that all it takes to get in that situation is decisions,
Mhm.
decisions and actions. That's it. And we're all capable of doing that. So when people have like that feeling towards me, I'm like, oh God, please don't feel that way towards me.
Mhm.
But I also think that we all take turns with the struggle and with the
Mhm.
ease, with the
Mhm.
dark, with the light, with the shadow work, with the light work.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to do that until we can stand in the light and see the shadow without wincing and being afraid or judging or criticizing. And until we can stand, or vice versa, I don't know which one I just said, until we can stand in the shadow and see the light and not be like, oh, are you serious? You're talking about light work right now, you know, until you can neutralize that and be like, yeah, I do need the light, because if it was just dark, I wouldn't know what I was doing right now.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
thank you. Yes, I do need the darkness, because if I was blinded by the light, then I would just not know what I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Like we're
Mhm.
just going to keep going back and forth and switching these positions until we realize that it's literally just all us. We are the shadow, we are the light. Like it's just us criticizing us, and once we stop for a second, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
even with like your animal. What was it? A cougar? What'd you say? A mountain
Yeah.
lion?
Mhm.
You're stressing, stressing, stressing. You're like, I am the cougar. It's fine. They're here. They're walking with me. Like it's fine. And I feel like that happens every time. Whenever I see people super afraid of, oh, I think if I get too deep into spirituality, I'll start talking to demons. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? I think that demons, devils, all of that good stuff is very personal to everyone. And if they
Mhm.
really were to look at it, it's just their shadow. And once they see it's
Mm.
their shadow, it's so neutralized
Mhm. Yeah.
quickly. You're like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a part of me that because of whatever, I feel like I had to demonize, quite
Mhm.
literally. And that's
Damn, I
that's
think
it.
that you saying that just did something for me because I like am kind of afraid of the dark and like the things that go bump in the night. And this comes from a person who like I camp by myself, I travel a country by myself. Like I'm always like alone in the dark. But like there every time I do it, I overcome fear. And I think that the things that I hear go bump in the night are just like my fears manifesting. It's like a thought form that you give enough energy to. They call those egregores, which it's like a thought form that literally like becomes alive and then like does become like an entity that you're dealing with. And it's like I wonder how many of those like I created throughout my childhood from fear of the dark and from fear of things that were like not known to me. And then I realized like so like my more like I guess in like the grand scheme, some fears that I have on like big life decisions is the unknown. But then when it comes down to like I'm alone in the dark, and if I don't like sleep with a fan on to make white noise, the fears that I have in the night are just fear of the unknown. Like I do not know what just made that sound. So then my mind is like, okay, it's obviously like a fucking, I guess demon for lack of a better word coming to like eat my feet at the end of the bed or
Yeah.
something, and it's like
Yeah.
it's both fear of the unknown. It's just like different manifestations of it. And it is like as a person who is also like really interested in the paranormal and just got into it, it's like it is interesting like what are we creating these hauntings? are we creating these hauntings by just not looking at ourselves? And then now like we have a haunted home because there's so many like emotions that aren't talked about or aren't processed or aren't honored, or we're not taking space for ourselves. Now all of a sudden we literally have something that's like walking around upstairs, but it's not like a ghost of a person that died in the house. It's just the ghost of you, the ghost of your shadow.
You know what? I love this conversation. And this is what I think about that. I think that all dark entities here on Earth are discarded facets of humans that walked here. So if
Mm.
if there is a person who had an urge that they could never, ever, ever talk about, it was not accepted, they would have been ostracized, they would have been shamed, they could have been killed, then they take that piece of themselves and this is in their shadow, they put it in their shadow and they're like, no. And once they die, that shadow goes into the grids with Gaia, and that is one of the darker entities we have here. And when it comes to shadow work, dark entities, demons, stuff like that, I hold a very compassion piece. I respect the roles that they play, but when it comes to I see demons as teachers and the dark entities as energies that have been like seduced by the light. And I just remind them, you do not have to do this. You can go to the light at any time, or seduced by the dark. I don't know if I said that, but you can go to the light at any time. Like you can, like, I just validate whatever it is. Because something like you being afraid of what goes bump in the night, that could come from you literally being 2 years old, dropping a cup, and it made a louder noise than you expected, and it scared everyone in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't know that you had the power to scare everyone, and it scared you too. So now you have something in you that you could have created to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then that's a lot for a little human to process. So they're like, nope, that's a little bit of a shadow. So now we're afraid of things going bump. And because you're powerful, you can make things go bump. And there you go. And it can be stuff as simple as that. But when we leave it in our shadow and we don't do our shadow work, it festers. And then the darker entities, the way that they figure out, the way that they like get energy is by looking for those pockets of shadows in people's auras. And they're like, oh, they'll never air that out. They'll never risk being shamed, because I would have never risked being shamed. So I can sit in this little pocket right here. But once you do the shadow work and you're like, I may be shamed for this, but this is who I am, then that dark entity has nowhere to sit within your aura.
It's like they can, that totally makes sense. And it's like maybe then that's how like we get entities attached to us, is because like we have space for them in our energy. And I'm wondering too, like, what does like when you're talking about shadow work, like does that always present itself kind of like the same way to you, or is it like totally different based off of like what you're working on? Like if it's like, oh, teenage, like something that was in your teenage years you put in your shadow, or when you're a child you put in your shadow, or just like you don't know the time that it got in there. And I'm just, because like for me it was literally like I wasn't actively thinking about it, but like my actions I was taking to get onto a new timeline like awoken the shadow in me that I didn't even know was fucking there. And so it wasn't a conscious thing. It just like it was handed to me on a plate, and then I was like, well, I don't want to eat this. And they were like, bitch, you have to eat it if you want to go anywhere. And I was like, well, fuck, I guess I'm gonna eat this meal then. And then the meal was my people pleasing. Anyways, so yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It happens the same way for me. I do not go looking for it. Shadow work, I do not look for, because you'll always be able to find it. Always, always, always. So I do it when I have to. And I try not to accumulate more. But if I don't have to do it, I don't. I
Yeah.
do not feel like I'm not this amazing person because I do shadow work all the time. No, 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 no. If I do not have to do it, I don't. I can hold space for it because I have like a lot of healer energy. So I can hold space for other people doing it, even if I'm not in the space of doing shadow work myself. So that's why I can seem like I'm doing shadow work a lot. But no, they have to present. I have it there. It's situational. Like, do
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this? Because yeah, I'm the same. I don't want to. I don't want to do it. And usually, it happens in phases to where, okay, we're going to do surface level today. We're just going to recognize it. We're going to look at it. And yeah, you're just going to make peace with that is actually what happened, and you're going to stop questioning yourself. That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
working on. And then it'll go a little bit deeper of now someone's going to validate that for you. You don't know that you need that, but you do need that. So you're going to get some external validation there. It's like, okay, so that'll happen. I process that. I cry, all that good stuff. And sometimes it'll just get to the point to where I find the root of it. And it usually ends with me doing some inner child work
Mm-hmm.
and some work with my masculine of setting up how I can support myself and that not happening again. And then, yeah, doing that allows my feminine to just bloom. And that's when I'm able to do the things that I like to do. And just being
Mm-hmm.
myself, channeling, going in flow, and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, I guess I like thinking of my different like processes as like different parts of myself. And so I'm like it's almost like, this version of Ashley is going to come up and like make me aware of something that I've been pushing into my shadow. And then another version comes up to work with that version to like help integrate it and help process it. And then both of those can go to sleep and then like another version will come up. And now we're just going to play the game as like integrating this shadow. And it's like one of my friends that I had on the last podcast, she talked about how like she almost sees like her team as just different versions of herself. And sometimes I think that when I look at my spirit team and my guides, I think of it like almost as outside of myself, and it feels kind of like when I can't hear them, or like I'm air quotes can't hear them, or like I'm just like struggling to feel them. If I just look at it as like, oh, it's just another aspect of me that I can like choose to channel and tap into, it just makes it like more accessible. And the way that you were talking about, like, you like tap into the masculine energy in you to like then set yourself up to be supported by the feminine. I really like looking at it that way, because I think that I do that, but unconsciously of like the energies that I'm tapping into. I just I like kind of like separating it just to separate it, because with my mind, if I can put it into two different categories, then it almost makes it whole again. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes.
because it's if I see like one process and I think it's one thing. If I see that it's actually multifaceted, it just like deepens the experience for me. And so I just had an experience where um I think it was maybe like a mini shadow work session, because I take if any kind of situation happens to me, if it's like what I perceive to be positive or perceive to be negative, I take about an hour or two to like fully understand what just happened, or like even scratch the surface of what happened. Like there's such a delay in like my processing, and I don't know if it's even a delay, it's just my processing time is like an hour to 2 hours. And I had somebody like that I considered a friend kind of like talking, what I perceived as like talking down to me, and in the moment I just kind of started like playing with my fingers, like putting my hands in front of my body, and just kind of like I could feel like my shoulders kind of coming in, and like was literally physically making myself small. And then like I feel like my hands in front of my body, I was like trying to like protect myself. And then afterwards, I had to drive for an hour, and I realized, like, oh my God, my inner child came up, and I let them convince me that I was bad for making a very minor mistake. I was like, oh no, I'm bad. I'm bad. You're right. I'm bad. And it was like that was like a mini shadow work session where I was like, oh, that thing, like that inner child lives within me and comes up a lot in situations where like she wasn't consciously invited in, and she just kind of like comes up and she takes over, and then all of like the other aspects of myself that are like sure of myself and strong, and are the part of myself that is confrontational, that's like, don't fucking speak to me that way, are not invited and are quiet. And it's just that little child that's like, you're right, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. Um, and anyway, so it's yeah, I totally agree with you that it is situational. Because sometimes I do hear the way that people talk about shadow work. It just seems like they wake up every day and they're like, they do a stretch, like, all right, what kind of shadow work is on the table today? And they like take their picking. And it almost like kind of seems like that from my perspective. But I'm glad to hear that it is also super fucking situational. Because sometimes I'm like, am I doing enough? But literally, that's another conditioning and program of mine. But every single day, I've like in every moment, I'm questioning like, how can I be a better version of myself, to a point where it's fucking exhausting. And some days I just want to like put on TV and like not think about how I can be a better version of myself. Like, can we just stop growing for like 10 minutes, an hour? Just like, can I just be here? And I just like talking about it with you is making me seem like, oh, we're just constantly, or I guess like I am, and it sounds like you are too, just constantly in this noticing, observing, and integrating process that is like shadow work. And I heard you talk a little bit on like I don't know, some platform, because I've heard you talk a lot. And I enjoy hearing you talk. But you're talking about how like doing like work for the collective. And that also kind of, when I hear people talk about that, I almost also think it's kind of like you wake up every day and you're like, what kind of processing am I going to do for the collective today? You know, it's like a conscious choice. But my experience of it is like, I don't feel like that's not even in like my top five, like things that I consciously choose, or not consciously choose, but like not my top five goals in this life is not to do too much for the collective. I honestly feel like if I do things for the collective, it's just like, it's all like personal and self-centric work. And so I feel like whatever work I do on myself just has a ripple effect. And so then that's how I feel like I'm doing work for the collective. Is that how it feels for you too?
Absolutely. Sometimes I think I heard either Jessa or Water Baby explain work for the collective in this way. I can't remember which one, but they said it was macro and micro work. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes micro work can look like doing Reiki or readings or one on one stuff with people where you are working with someone outside of yourself, one on one, or even groups. That's micro work, but macro work happens internally, to where it's kind of like, this is how I know I'm doing macro work: when it feels so much heavier, or when something very small triggers a very, very big shadow to process. So if it feels like it feels like more than just my emotions, like this is a lot that I am like purging. This usually would take me a night, a couple of hours. It might throw off my day, and I've been trying to get through this for 3 days. This is a macro assignment. And I think somewhere in between macro and micro is like grid work, to where I do drive around, and I think that I'm like, my vessel is being used to kind of like drop off energy or transmute energy or make certain grids and sigils. Because sometimes they'll just have me drive around, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what's happening right now, but we're driving around. Okay, I guess we're doing grid work. That's fine. Thank you for the heads up. A lot of the work that I do, I don't realize I've done it until I'll have to look back, like in retrospect, and be like, oh crap, I did a lot, and I was beating myself up because I couldn't get out of bed. Well, yeah, I was ushering in this energy. Of course I couldn't get out of bed. What the heck? So I've been learning to be a lot more gentle with myself and giving myself that time to understand what's going on in a later date. And like you, I process things, especially shadow work. I say I process it like a chihuahua eats snacks. Like you take it and then you go to your little corner and you're like, what the fuck just happened? What just happened? What was that? Oh my God. What happened? So that's how I do my shadow work. So something crazy can happen. And like even getting the news that someone has passed away, I'm like, oh, okay. And friends would look at me like, what is happening? You have to cry or something. And I'm like, yeah, I have to cry. Like, yeah, what? Okay. I'll cry. I should cry right now. I should cry. But usually I would get news or something bad would happen, or I would be in a situation. And then once I feel safe enough, I can be like, holy crap. Like, this is what's going on, and this is what's going on. And I think that is I'm going to approach that on a couple of different levels. I think that may be a symptom of CPTSD. I think that's how you say that, or PTSD. But also like spiritual warrior energy, because that is the type of stuff that we are dealing with. That's what the energetic war is. It's like, that's where the energetic wars are taking place in those moments. So when we are in those moments, it's like there's more going on, because I remember you saying that it felt like you didn't have access to your protector. You didn't have access to that part of you. I feel like there's more going on with them. And then you get to go back and care for yourself. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I'm just happy to know that like I think that like this conversation has been validating for me and my experiences. And I love that what I learned, I think I've learned a lot about myself in this conversation, in that like to your prioritizing of like having people validate you in your life is kind of healing something in me, to know that like, oh, that's something that, like, I guess in my mind, like we said earlier, like I did earlier, it's like, it's not a bad thing to like want this validation. And like, that's just not like as much I'm like fiercely independent, I work well to have a lot of mirrors around me, and sometimes that mirroring is just validation, and it's healing. It's really healing. And so thanks for sharing that, and you know, indirectly healing something in me. Maybe you knew what you're doing on a certain level.
Not at all. But I'm so glad it helped. And see, that's where my work comes in. I have no idea what's going on. But you know what I mean? Yeah. I would have no idea, but I'm so glad that it did help.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, I am so happy that you came on to my podcast today. We made it work out. We got you here. I loved hearing. I never know, like when I ask people to like talk about animal communication, I never know what's going to come up. And I like am thrilled with your story. I'm going to think about your bunny and your bear all the time. Also, I love that your bear is purple, because like when I have like I do like I've done shamanic journeying like down to the animal realm, and I've like met like almost feels like a council of like high ranking animal spirits. Like it's like one representative from like all the different animal collectives, and I've like met with them, and they look like a mixture of like what I imagine galactic beings and like animals on Earth to look like. It's like a mix of the two. And so when I've seen like bear energy, it has been like multicolored fur, and like I can't even really like make out their faces. I think I'm just like still trying to process. I don't know. I mean, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen in this life, you know? So it's like it's hard for me to make out. But like when you said purple bear, I was like, that just sounds like some of like the galactic bears that I've met, you know? So it's just really cool that you have that, because it is both, you know. It is like animal spirits feel multidimensional, multifaceted, like they're travelers between all the different worlds and the realms, like, you know, just like our energy and our consciousness can do. So it sounds like you have a pretty badass bear friend.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. This has been amazing. And please,
Yay.
anytime that just let me know when I can come back. I would love to do this again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think you're the first guest to be like, have me back right away. Every other one, I'm just like, I'm gonna have you back. And I'm like, really, and but I just love that you said that. What's your sun sign and your moon sign?
Libra sun, Libra moon.
Nice. I knew that you were Libra energy. I'm a Libra rising and a Libra moon and a Cancer sun. So,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
So we got the Libra moons. That's what it is. That's why we can't handle the jealousy and the envy. We're like, geez, God, no,
I know.
just
And
no,
why we're
don't
just
do
like,
that.
I just need ease. Like, if I wake up every day, like, a perfect day for me is waking up and literally having nothing to do, having no expectations, having literally no plans. I'm like, this is where I fucking thrive.
Yeah, I guess I'll just take care of my body today. I don't know. Maybe I'll adorn it. Maybe I'll make it look pretty. I don't know. Yeah,
Like, who
I
fucking
agree.
knows? Yeah. Awesome. Well, do you want to I would love it if you were to like plug yourself. Where can people find you? Talk about your podcast, your YouTube channel, your Patreon, all of that.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at 11th and Delphi. I'm on Patreon. That's how you'll get access to my links to scheduled readings. And I have an amazing sliding scale option. So I know that times are tough for some people. So if you need 30-minute readings, you would like to do anything like that, join the Patreon where you can and go ahead and book on the link there. I do lives on Instagram and YouTube at 11th and Delphi, and I usually do check-ins, do short format readings by tips and donations, and sometimes we do divination shares where somebody will join and they want to flex their intuition muscle or try out a new modality and different things like that. So 11th and Delphi is my little community, and my podcast is Liminal Processing.
Ah, God, what a good name for a podcast. I love the word liminal. I love the idea of liminal. I think about it all the time. One of my last podcast guests was just like, all of reality is liminal. Everything is liminal. And I was like, damn, yeah. And that like shifted my perspective. I'm like, you're fucking right. Like, holy shit, like everything is liminal. No wonder I always feel like I'm dancing in between something because I am.
Just always. You're
Yeah.
always in between something. And I really love our podcast because it allows oracles, higher dimensional beings, healers, the space to say, hey, I have something that I feel like I need to kind of sort through. Like, I don't
Mhm.
really, I feel like I maybe shouldn't be struggling with this, but I am. And I'm all about reminding people that we are still human and that it's okay.
Mm.
Like, I'm all
Mhm.
about that. Like, it does not matter. Like, it's amazing that you remember your power, but you are exiled because you were in a human body. Like,
Mhm.
it's amazing that you remembered it. We are
Yeah.
exiled right now. We're dense as shit. You're doing
Wow.
great.
That's amazing. I love that. It is like, yeah, I think sometimes I struggle. Like, I know I'm kind of like spending some time right now in like the lower experience of being awake. Like, I can feel myself like falling asleep a lot, but it's like I'm observing it. But it is even just amazing that I can like remember that I'm like a conscious being who like the astrals all around and like fucking whatever, all the shit. I just remember all of that while also having a human experience. Like, fuck, we're so fucking hard on ourselves all the time, but the fact that we're even here having this conversation is pretty fucking phenomenal, and like we deserve a pat on the back and an applause from ourselves and everyone. So just saying.
We sure did, damn it.
I'm always really bad at saying goodbye. Like, I'm always just like, I either say goodbye way too late, I'll try to extend the conversation, or I just say it really abruptly. So I just want to like talk about how I'm really bad at ending podcasts. And so that's it. That's how I'm going to end this podcast, is talking about how bad I am at ending podcasts.
Okay. I still think you're doing great, but all right.